All right, let's get started. Welcome everyone to the final meetup. Congratulations on making it through your first semester in the master's program. You should be proud. Almost done. We're not going to really teach anything new tonight. So let's start with like the last thing you need to do, the final exam. So it is now available in Blackboard. It should be as of 3 minutes ago. So if somebody wants to just verify and make sure I'm not a liar. Um, it is due by midnight Sunday, the 19th. Um, so you can use your textbook, you can use your notes, you can use the class slides, whatever. We just expect you to work on the exam by yourself. Like, don't consult with other students or significant others or whatever. Just try to you do it your own work. There's two parts to the final exam. There's 10 multiple choice questions, and then there are three tiny data sets that you're going to work with. Actually, I would not prepared here. Give me 1 second and I can, because I want to show this real quick. Sorry, I got to move some Zoom windows around, and RStudio really wants me to update, but not today. So where is it? So I got to go to final. Let me open this file. All right. This is not exactly it. Hold on. I am so sorry. Completely unprepared. And Zoom is covering Windows on me. It's making it a little bit challenging. So I want to look at this one. Private final. Okay, here we go. So, I need to do new share. So here's my RStudio. So you're going to download two files. One's a PDF of the exam, and one is going to be this R Markdown. This is where you're going to put all your answers. So in the first part, just put A through E, whatever, next to the number. Okay, and then you should knit. So for part two, there's three data sets. So if you want to work on the exam interactively, you can just run this chunk, and you see you have the three data sets. We tried to make this a little bit, tried to scaffold this as best we can. So if you knit this, I got to go here. So this is, you should get a PDF, hopefully, if everything works right. And what's going to happen is you have all these variables. I'll talk about those in a second. It's going to put it in a table. So we're asking you to calculate a bunch of statistics for the three data sets. Okay. And then you're going to want it in that tabular format. As you go through the exam, there's some questions that will make it easier to answer if you look at it that way. So all you need to do is replace these NA with the values. So if you're calculating the mean, however you calculate the mean, you could put it there. You can, do it in the console and just put a number there. You could put the function. The key is that these variables all need to be single numbers. And that includes the slope, intercept, and things like that. So just be careful. Like if you get errors knitting, it's probably because one of these variables is not just a single numeric value. Okay, I'll give that as a tip. That's one area where students kind of get hung up. But you can just answer those. I'm not going to answer them. And then, so this whole block creates that table. Don't touch this, right? Theoretically, it should just work for you. Then what you're going to do is for each of the data sets, we're asking you, is it appropriate to estimate a regression? So just, pick one of these and then explain it. And then you're probably going to do, we're expecting some kind of supplemental things. So there's an R chunk for each of those. So if in order to answer that question, you need to do some more things. That's the space to do it. And then lastly, don't forget this question. Why is it important? And the other thing I'll point out is, don't just give me a scree onto why visualization is important. I want it grounded into the analysis that you're doing with these three data sets. Connect it to these data sets. Okay. So, I suspect, having done, I don't know exactly, but I would say you should allocate about 2 hours to do this. But like I said, I would look at it tonight, start it, you can come back to it. It just needs to, just need to submit that PDF by Sunday midnight. I thought I saw a hand, but then it went away. Somebody have a question?
Yeah, I had a question
Yeah.
for the parts where we just have the one number saved as a variable. Do you want us to show our work for those, or is it sufficient to just show the one number?
It's sufficient to show the one number. Oh, that's the other thing is it says in the directions round to three decimal places. And no more, no less. Seriously, round to three decimal places. Okay. So that's why you might want to do it, and then you can just type the number in and do the rounding yourself if you don't, or you can look up how to do that in our good question. Other questions?
Another reason you might have issues knitting if you fail to knit is that you might have used a symbol, a special symbol like a sigma or mu or something. And so if you did use a special symbol or an emoji, so then that would create some problems. So if you did, just be mindful when you're using that to make sure that those are characters that LaTeX would read, be able to read and allow you to use.
I think I can give a little hint without giving. Oh, shoot, hold on one second. Without is okay. Why is this not loading? Oh, come on. Oh, can't get my cursor over there. Okay, so we'll do this. Do new share. We'll go to my desktop R Studio because I don't know why that's not working. Okay, let me create a new R script. All right, so let's say we'll use MT cars, right? And I want to know, okay, we're not asking, we are asking you to do a correlation. We're not asking you to do a t-test. Okay, so let's do that. So I could say t out, right? I'm going to do a t-test, and I got to remember, I need, so let's say via, okay, so I want to say MPG from VS data equals M cars, right? And let's say from this, you want it to get the p-value, right? So T out, right, is H test, right? So there's a bunch of things, but one thing you can do when you have these kind of complex R objects is you can do LS. Or with RStudio, I could do T out $, and if I can just, and it'll give me a list of all of the values that are on that object. And look at it, one of them is p-value. Oh, there's my p-value. So if I needed to save the p-value as a single number, that's how I could get it. But for your exam, you could also say, whatever my val could be, I could say 0.0001. Of course, you're going to go to 3 decimal places. So this is fine too. Does that make sense? I could just look at the output. Oops, there's no summary. I just want to print it, right? So I could just do my thing and say, okay, I need this p-value, and then I could just write it in, or I can get to it this way. Does that make sense? I'm trying. There's another particular function you're going to use that we used a lot, and the values that we're asking for are inside that object. So if I just put T out and then try to build that table, it's going to complain because it's an object, not a single value.
So the benefit of doing what Jason showed is that it will minimize human error, right? In the case, that you might type it wrong or something.
Just to clarify question, then you are not asking us to write the code, just like interested just in the answer. We can write the code somewhere else.
Yeah,
just
sure.
put the answer there.
Yep.
Final
Either way,
there.
or you can put the code to put it in that value, whichever way you want to do it.
Right.
Okay.
Whichever way you're comfortable. And then you're going to look at the table, so you're going to probably want to knit to answer the last bit of questions. You're going to look at that table and then answer the questions, and then you might have to do some supplemental things. we will be around. Angela and I are going to actually be at the ARC conference tomorrow and Friday, but we'll be checking email and Slack periodically. So if you have questions, just ping us. We're not out to get you or, trick you up. It's yeah, I'll be curious to see what you think at the end. Any other questions about the exam? All right. So we're not really going to teach anything. We just like to give just talk a little bit about what our research interests are, because we actually this semester had 2 students do an independent study with us on some work we're doing around large language models and trying to score text-based essays. So we're often, looking for students to do independent studies, or if we're looking for side work, occasionally we can find funding to support a student for a semester. So if any of these things are interesting to you, you can reach out to us, or just in the future. Like, actually, I just got an email from a student that I actually need to respond to as I think about it, who is doing some work and was asking for advice, knowing that we might have some connection to this. So we're happy to do that. We're trying to build, I'd like to think that you're going to be part of a community for the next 2 years ish, and so it's kind of nice to do this. So be on the lookout, because one thing that independent study we're going to give a talk for the entire community early in the fall semester, and Anna will send out an email to announce it. I'd like to try to do it. What we've done in the last time we did it is we actually did it in person on campus, but then also streamed it. So it's kind of an opportunity to kind of meet some of your fellow students and us in person. Okay, so in terms of like my statistical work, a lot of what I've done is around propensity score analysis, which is a quasi-experimental design. So remember way back when we talked about research design, like in week 2, we talked about how the randomized control trial is sort of the gold standard for estimating causality. So that is true, but if you remember, I talked about the randomized control trial is already a compromise to a true counterfactual, right? We can't, Holland coined this term, the fundamental problem of causality, and that we can't observe the same person under both the treatment and control, right? That's really what we're interested in. So RCT is sort of the best tool we have, but there are other tools that I think are really effective. I have some, I often critique, as somebody who's a principal investigator on a large federal grant where we're doing very large scale randomized control trials. I'm often frustrated because we have to make compromises in the design or the implementation of the intervention to adhere to these strict rules in the randomization, so much so that it sometimes, I think, compromises the intervention. It's inauthentic, right? So, economists do this all the time where they use other kinds of methods. So PSA is one of those ones where it's an approach to, adjusting for selection bias. So you let selection bias happen, but the argument is if we can observe enough information about the individuals and model, right? So one of the ways I got into predictive modeling was in order to estimate propensity scores, which is defined as the probability of being in the treatment. So the more variables I know, for my case in education, the more I know about a student, and if I can accurately predict whether or not somebody uses a treatment or not, well, I can use that information to adjust for the selection bias so that when I'm making a comparison to somebody who received the treatment, they look an awful lot, if not exactly like somebody in the control group that just happened to be in the control group, right? But they're equivalent on all of the important factors. Okay, so that's PSA in a nutshell. If you're really interested in this, I'm in the earliest stages. Chapter 1 is kind of fleshed out, I think, nicely, provides a nice introduction. So you can go here to psa.briar.org. And then I've got skeleton, mostly R code, to show some of the other chapters. So I'm in the process of writing a book on this. I also gave a talk in the fall at the New York City R users group, and it's recorded. It's on YouTube, so you can go to this link. It's a little over an hour, sort of an introduction. I also go a little bit into sort of my extensions to it. It's part of my dissertation work. I implemented an R package, and method for estimating propensity scores when you have clusters or you have multi-level data. So in my case, I looked at, the effects of charter schools versus traditional public schools that are nested within states, because states have different laws regarding charter schools. So I needed to adjust for that. So in other words, I need to make sure that, not only that I match students within the state, but I'm also interested in state effects as well as national effects, right? So that was that. Try-match is another package I wrote where there are certain situations where maybe I have a control in two different treatments. And so what I want to do, instead of creating what, often we create matched pairs. So here's a treatment, here's a control, but I want to create matched triplets. I want to control match to a person in treatment 1, match to a person in treatment 3, right? And so there's procedures in that package to find those matches and analyze them. PSA boot is a bootstrapping method for propensity score analysis. It's exactly what you think, in the same way we talked about bootstrapping in our class. It's just implemented in the context of propensity score analysis, where we can use multiple methods and different approaches. And then PSA graphics, I'm now the maintainer of this package. It was originally created by my dissertation chair, which is just a package of visualizations to help analyze it. So at some point, this will be end of life, because a lot of these are using a lot of base graphics. I actually have a package that goes with the book, so I'm re-implementing a lot of those things to use ggplot. But anyways, these are just a few other like miscellaneous things I've worked on. Likert is probably most actually, I think the Likert package is what got me this job originally as an adjunct, because I get 4,200 downloads per month on that one. And this is a package to analyze Likert response data. Shiny QDA is another one where I'm tempted to do another independent study in the fall. It's an application designed to do qualitative data analysis, but which is something data scientists, I think, almost never do. So this is the idea where I'm going to look at a document, I'm going to highlight things and do things. It also has functionality to score texts on a rubric, but I'm slowly integrating natural language processing things. So the Shiny QDA allows you to do tokenization, and it allows you to do topic modeling. And now I'm looking at introducing tokenizations using things like BERT, which is sort of Google's transformers package, and possibly now with Hugging Face. If you're not familiar, Hugging Face, a great resource for NLP kinds of tools. Creating a GPT, so if you enter a whole bunch of documents that you want to analyze, you can use a chat GPT like a model to interrogate your documents to kind of analyze it. So there's an opportunity to do some, I think, really cool natural language processing things. And I could use the help, particularly because there's some interest. There's no other open source qualitative data analysis tool. So I'm getting some interest. BrickSet we use in this class. It's just a data set. I don't know what else to talk. Oh, ML- is something Angela and I worked on last year with some students. It's a framework where we created a dashboard to evaluate predictive models across a whole bunch of data sets. So there's a paper from about 12 years ago. It's like, do we need hundreds of classifiers? And they went through this, and really the result of that paper was like random forest. If you don't know anything, just pick random forest and you're probably going to be okay.
Still now.
Still
Yeah.
now, like in our predict and trying to score essays right now, we're finding random forest is always doing well, regardless of the tokenization process. Random forest is working really well. That actually seems to be the more important choice, which is a surprise to me. Anyways, so we kind of trying to recreate that because there's a whole bunch of new methods. It's still a little bit in flux. We haven't actually written that paper yet. And then a few other things I consult or kind of collaborate with another faculty member in the youth studies program. So I've done some stuff. So there's this youth survey in New York City working with young people in the city where they create this survey, and then there's a dashboard so they can analyze it. I'm really proud of this work because I've gone where these young people have used these data and then presented it to politicians and legislators in New York City in order to make change for young people. It's super inspiring, and so I'm really happy to be a part of that. And I've had graduate students in this program work on that a couple of years ago. Right now, I'm working on another update to future mapping. And in 2 weeks, I'll be down in the city with young people where I wrote a Shiny app so they can go out on their phone and sort of map features of the city that are important to them or that need improvement, right? So we're trying to get them to collect their own data about their communities and use that. So that's some of the stuff. And of course, Angela and I work on DAX. Maybe I'll let Angela talk about DAX, and she's the project manager. I'm the PI, but she really makes it work. So I'll let her do it.
Well, we've been working on DAX for since 2015. I started as a graduate student, but right now we're in the phase where we're testing the effects of DAX on student outcome and working with figuring out good variables that are drawn from DAX data to put into predictive models to help predict students who might be at risk, so we can actually offer students resources and supports early on before it is too late or before they finish the first semester, so they are off to a good start right from the start. It is a $3.8 million grant. We're in year 3, almost year 4.
Yeah, I got to change that this year to 2021.
Yep. Yeah, so if you are interested in doing independent studies with us, a large, primarily it's going to be related to this project, I assume.
So this semester we had 2 students really working on this bit, right?
Yep.
So right now we're using machine learning to score the essays because and Angelica will talk about feedback on the next slide. But right, so timeliness of feedback is really important, and sorry if we didn't always meet that need here, but grading labs and things is time consuming. So any place where we can automate that kind of stuff, particularly when the feedback's critical, that's really important. So machine scoring essays is part of that. And so the work we've done with the students this semester is increasing the accuracy of those scores as compared to human scores that we have by quite a bit. So we're really super excited about that.
Yeah, and this DAX is open source, it's free, and we have institutions reaching out to us. We are not even reaching out to them, and they're reaching out to us saying, we want to use your product, we want to use DAX. And so it's quite amazing. It's a good feeling, also overwhelming at the same time, but
yeah. And
yeah.
we preliminarily just did some analysis from students from the fall at University of Albany, which is one of our research sites, and students who were in our treatment group their GPA was about a half a grade better.
Yeah.
So if the
Yep.
control group was a 3.0, the treatment group is like a 3.5 on the GPA scale, something like that. 3.4. It wasn't quite 3.
Yeah,
So
and we implemented an RCT, so randomized experimental
pretty
controlled trial.
rigorous. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
And
And so this is my work. So I'm trained actually primarily as a researcher in educational psychology with a focus on students' responses to feedback. And so this is a model that I created as a part of my dissertation. And it is because of research that I've gotten into statistics, and statistics has become an important part of my work, because in order to do research and do good research, we have to sort of align the appropriate statistical analysis to your research design and your research questions, right? And that's why one of the reasons we sort of emphasize and highlight and stress what are your research questions for your final project proposal. And if you don't have that, we will say, make that clear, right? Because by making that clear, you'll know what your research, your variables are, and that would guide your analysis and your results and your findings and your implications. And so, yeah, stats it's quite an important part of research. Without it, it's incomplete, I think, the process. And so, yes, feedback. I've told some of you who I've met that feedback is my passion. And so I really enjoyed the meetings that I had with the one-on-one meetings that I had with whoever I had it with. So thank you for reaching out and doing that. And so these are some of the research questions that are related to responses to feedback in DAX. And so Shiny QDA actually has a sentiment analysis part to it,
yeah, I
right?
forgot about that. Yeah.
Yep, and so that's something that we can look into. Student essays is a big data source for DAX, because students are required to write an essay in response to the SRL feedback that they received, just as a reflective exercise, but also to measure their writing quality as college students. And so we use those and analyze that qualitatively. And we can also use sentiment analysis to see if they're writing in a positive or negative ways. And most of the time it is positive, but of course there are negative judgments and they say, nope, this is incorrect. You are inaccurate. I don't want to hear anything. I know my stuff. Yeah,
Yeah, to give you a sense, we can give you, if you haven't heard of sentiment analysis, this is super interesting to me because sentiment scores are positively correlated with student success.
right.
So students who, as they're entering college, write more positive essays are more likely to do better. So from a predictive point of view, it's really interesting. Now, if you go Google sentiment analysis, a lot of the initial research on this stuff was trying to like analyze Twitter and tweets and things like that, particularly around political things. But if I come in and look at an essay here, so this is what like a qualitative data analysis would look like. So you kind of come in, you highlight something, I say, and add a code, and there's a whole bunch of coding schemes you can use, you can define. But what we've done is we can go into sentiment. So there's sort of 4 major sentiments. So here, what we're doing is taking this essay and looking at the words in the essay. In this case, if you use Bing, its words are classified as either positive or negative. So you could take, so you would assign a score. So there's, I guess, 34 words that are in the dictionary. So you could say 26 over 34 would give you kind of a sensitive score, where 0 would be negative and 1 would be positive or something like that. Right. And then, but there's a whole bunch, right? So Bing is just one of them. NRC, right, has a different set of classifications. So you have things like trust and survive. Anyways, so we built this in so we can kind of see. So struggle is an anger word, a fear word, a negative word, and a sadness word. So it counts in multiple categories, which is fine, right? But I think looking at text things like this, because when you come over here, we can look at, so that's a single essay. But when we go in here, we can look at it across the entire corpus of documents that we have in this, right? And so we could see, if I go to, let me just do the Bing since it's binary, it's a little bit easier. We can get a distribution, maybe. There we go. So we can see students on average write positive essays in terms of our study. But it is somewhat correlated.
Yeah. And based on my dissertation findings, emotions are related to how students use the feedback, or if they use it at all. But even more importantly, I found that their judgments about the feedback is highly moderately correlated with whether or not they use it. And so that's something that I think would be interesting to see with DAX, is if they say, oh yes, this is pretty accurate, right? Versus, oh no, this is completely wrong. Is there a relationship with how they end up using it? And I think that's one of the next steps, is to figure out how to measure how students engage with the feedback. But yeah.
So Anthony asked a question, how we deal with the use of AI. So AI is definitely changing how we think about things. So we've done actually some exploration this semester. One thing we were looking at is, can AI help us in terms of qualitative coding? Currently, the answer seems no, at least not in any reliable way. However, the things that AI, when we talk about AI, I sort of hate that term because it's not really AI, it's machine learning. It's fancy machine learning. Generative AI right now, the large language models are really giant word prediction systems, right? Very sophisticated, don't get me wrong, but they're still word prediction systems. It's still probability in there, okay? So this notion of general AI, I think, is a long way away. I don't think a computer is going to become sentient anytime soon. I could be wrong, and I might be the first ones the machine kills by saying that. But anyways, so we're looking at a number of ways. We are somewhat concerned. We did run our prompt through ChatGPT 3.5, and our machine scored it fairly well, right? But we're working in a diagnostic area, so cheating on the essay is really, we just say, well, then the student's just doing themselves a disservice. Although I am interested, I just haven't had time, of using some of these use as many of these generative models as I can and just generate sort of a data set of
Mm.
AI generated essays. We have a lot of essays that we know are written by humans because some of them date back to 2016. So, and see if we can predict whether or not, the essay was written by an AI or a person. I know that's a big field right now, and currently I think a lot of the research is sort of very general, but I don't know of anybody looking at a specific prompt, right? I'm wondering because I think what we're learning with these AI models is bigger is not always better. And so you have like Notebook LM, which I think is Google's product, where you can feed it a bunch of your own documents, or now I think what they announced yesterday at Google I/O, where they can have generative AI in Gmail and you can ask, those kinds of questions and the answers are coming from your email. And those tend to perform better. AI, these models like ChatGPT is really great at summarizing long documents, right? Those are the things it's good at. Writing a new thoughtful, creative essay is not really good. It's not really good at it. Anyways, so that's some kinds of things. I digress, but that's stuff you're interested in, reach out and maybe we could figure something out. So I said I want to keep this on the shorter side because I know you guys are just chomping at the bit to start the final exam, but we'll stick around and answer any other questions. You can reach out. You can connect on LinkedIn. I'm not super active. I'm mostly on Mastodon, and I don't post a lot. I try to interact. That's I don't use Twitter anymore. But anyways, this is all our contact. Oh, last thing I want to say right here at the bottom. Okay, I would wait until maybe next week. But if you go to the website, so this will stay up, right? Spring 2024. We keep them up for as long as possible. In fact, actually, I've never taken one down since I've started using GitHub to host them. But if you've been typing, because a lot of times I just say use data 606 and it does a redirect. Sometime in the next month, it's going to redirect to a fall 2024 site. But if you type spring 2024 as a subdomain, this will always be here. Okay. The other thing is if you go up to the GitHub repo, this whole website is hosted on GitHub using GitHub Pages. So all the slides are, oh no, that shouldn't be there. I have to get rid of that. So all the slides are here in HTML and PDF and are Markdown. Anyways, what I wanted to point out is you can either clone it, or if you go to code, you can download a zip file. And you're going to have an archive of all the class materials on your local computer that you can use as a reference in the future. So I would encourage you to do that. But like I said, wait a week or so. So I might add just a few little touch-ups to kind of, put a bow on the whole thing for the semester.
I suck at being on social media, so if you do want to reach out, just email me. And I'll respond pretty much right away.
Oh, so Amanda's got 2 kids in college. I have a kid looking at college, so we have one more year. Urge to do a sentiment, on their application. So, yeah, speak positively. I mean, don't use AI. So that's one. I did see a paper recently that if you Google it, you can find it. There are some phrases and words that AI tends to like that students would normally write. And the one that always stuck out to me is distinguished faculty. If you're high school students writing a college application, tell them not to use the phrase distinguished faculty, because that's one of the ones that AI uses all the time, which I find hilarious. Faculty don't read college applications as like admissions counselors. So, and admissions counselors often are at odds with faculty. So it might not help. So avoid that word.
I'm sure they do that.
What was that?
Well, I'll make sure they do that. I'm taking a note. No, we
Just
talk
Google.
about it a lot. It's a big deal. The AI
Yeah.
thing is a big deal. So yeah, a hot topic of conversation.
Yeah, and So all the institutions we're currently working with are still, and I hope they remain, test optional, right? I'm a pretty big critic of ACT and SAT. I think they are highly problematic in a lot of ways. And so, a lot of schools went test optional with COVID, and a lot of them will stay that way. Like the University of Albany, I think, is going to stay that way. I think most of the SUNY system, because I don't know if you know, California state schools, there's a court injunction. So public schools in California cannot use SAT or SAT for admissions or scholarship decisions. And that's based upon a lot of work out of Arizona State researchers, largely Arizona State, but not only, that supported the lawyers who brought the case. And it's probably going to stand because the test industry has reacted. Angela and I are both in the National Council of Measurement Education, and we actually had an article. We were co-authors on an article that was published in a special issue on this very thing. So yeah, they're not great. So admissions counselors are looking at high school GPAs, extracurricular activities, and those admissions essays. I think those have become much more important in that decision process. So,
Well, not to belabor the point, but both of my kids had a rough time with COVID through high school.
yeah,
And those essays, I think, really made the difference for kids, particularly in that cohort, where their education was disrupted, their extracurriculars were disrupted. Neither of my kids took the SAT in the end, but the essays really made a big difference, not only for their application, I'm sure, but also for their self-discovery
yeah,
and really kind of understanding, putting the pieces together. Because I think they missed out on a lot of more subtle, nuanced sort of experiences through those years.
yeah,
And it kind of knit everything together for them. So
yeah. That's
Yeah.
great. I'm glad. So where are they going to college?
I have one in Penn State and one in Eastern University in Pennsylvania. We're down in PA.
Wow. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Those are good schools.
Thank you.
It's exciting.
All right. Well,
Well,
that's all we
yeah.
have. We'll answer other questions. This has been a great semester. Thanks, everyone. Great cohort.
Yep, same here. It was
Yes,
very
thank
good
you very much for
semester.
everything.
Yeah,
We
our
enjoyed
pleasure.
it a lot.
Yep. Thanks to Jason and Angela.
Thanks, everyone, and wish you all the best.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you. Now I
Thank
get to
you.
go next Thursday to commencement to see some students who went through this probably about 2 years ago. So I'm excited.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Have a virtual commencement held for